Every wheeled vehicle has its hill climbing limit, even on a planet with 38% the gravity of Earth. Perseverance met its limit on a steep slope with crumbly rocks that forced it to retreat, which led it to a little rock that's part of a bigger story on this episode of Mars Guy. Perseverance has been crisscrossing this strangely shaped feature dubbed Crocodilian on the outside of Jezero crater in an effort to understand how its clay-rich rocks formed and how they relate to the surrounding olivine-rich rocks. It packed up from the crumbly rock that it inadvertently blew apart with its gas dust removal tool, as I presented in episode 224, and made an impressive pair of drives to the south and east. It looks like the intent was to investigate the edge of Crocodilian, its geologic contact, in a new location. The third drive in 3 sols, or Martian days, might have reached the contact, but the terrain intervened. Here's a view from the Mastcam Z camera, part of a panorama that was recently processed and posted by the team. It includes a view of the Jezero crater rim, capturing some of its grandeur and also helping to convey the steep slopes that Perseverance mostly has only had to drive down. Here's a rover model showing the approximate location where Perseverance stalled out, and note Mars Guy for scale standing next to it. You can see the prominent contact of Crocodilian about 40 meters beyond Perseverance and several meters higher, the proverbial just out of reach. Here's the view looking back from that location. The zigzag pattern of the wheel tracks is evidence that Perseverance was starting to struggle with wheel slip. This is not like the loose soil it dealt with on its drive up the rim going out of Jezero crater. Instead, it looks more gravelly. The slope doesn't seem so bad, but unless you live in the crooked world of a vintage Batman episode, the horizon should be horizontal. Here's what that looks like. That's about a 22-degree slope, manageable under the right conditions, but the conditions here aren't right, as shown in this view from the rear HazCam. Perseverance tried again on the next sol, but just made it worse, mostly sliding sideways and churning up and/or crushing larger rocks in the process. It also managed to pick up several new passengers in its previously empty wheel, but they're actually harmless. So the next drive, several sols later, started by going back downslope for about 8 meters before hooking south and resuming a shallower angle of attack on the slope. This probably ended prematurely, as shown by the 4 steerable wheels all turned away from their typical end-of-drive orientation. But in a fortuitous twist, a small rock just in front of Perseverance proved to be interesting. Its strange shape must have attracted the team's attention because it was targeted with both Mastcam Z and Supercam. The view with Mastcam Z clearly shows another example of a kind of rock seen previously, which looks like it's made of beads or maybe frog spawn. I reported on similar rocks in episodes 206 and 208 when Perseverance was more than a half a kilometer north of here. I suggested then that they could have formed as impact spherules, little molten bits of rock that harden into glass after a large impact, like the one that made Jezero crater. But another option is accretionary lapilli, which are produced during explosive volcanic eruptions. They form a lot like hailstones and often show the internal layers that build up in the process. I don't see any internal layers here among the spherules that appear to be split open. That doesn't preclude a volcanic origin, but I think the impact origin makes more sense given the location on the rim of a large impact crater. As of the posting of this episode, Perseverance has not made any new drives up toward the contact, so it's not yet clear whether it will have to further retreat.